What's the scariest thing that can happen when you're camping? It's not an animal. It's waking up to find that someone or something has rearranged your entire world while you slept. Our first account comes from a group of 4 college friends. Let's call them Mark, Ben, Chloe, and Leo. For spring break, they decided on a dispersed camping trip in the Colorado backcountry, far from any official sites. After a long drive down a desolate Forest Service road, they found a secluded clearing by a dry creek bed. It was perfect. They pitched their tents in a haphazard cluster, spent the evening relaxing, and turned in for the night. Mark, a notoriously light sleeper, expected a restless night. Instead, he fell into a deep, unnatural slumber. When he unzipped his tent the next morning, the world was wrong. All 4 tents had been moved, not just disturbed, relocated. They now formed a perfect square in the clearing. In the exact center was a carefully stacked pyramid of 4 stones. Nothing inside the tents was touched. Their gear was exactly as they'd left it. The friends emerged, sharing a thick, disorienting silence. Chloe mentioned a vivid dream about walking through a desert while someone counted her steps. Ben recalled a similar dream of marching in formation. They felt a strange, invasive connection to each other, as if a 5th silent presence was observing them all at once. Examining the ground, they found drag marks leading from their original tent sites, but the marks stopped 10 feet short of the new locations. It was as if the tents had been dragged, then carried the rest of the way. When Ben accidentally kicked over the stone pyramid, the silence shattered. From deep in the woods, a low, grinding rumble echoed, like ancient stone moving against stone. Without a word, they packed in a frantic, shared panic and fled. They've never discussed that night again. What moved them, and why did they all sleep through it? True terror is waking up to find your world has been meticulously rearranged in the dark. Story 2 is from a couple, James and Nina. Seeking to reconnect, they booked a remote campsite in a national forest. As they finished setting up at dusk, a man approached from the shadows of the trees. He introduced himself as Eli, camping alone in a blue sedan a few sites over. His demeanor was intense, his eye contact unwavering, and his attention fixed almost exclusively on Nina. After a strained few minutes, James politely ended the interaction. That night, James awoke to the sound of muted voices whispering just beyond their campsite. He shone a light, finding nothing. The next day, as James gathered firewood, he found a note tucked under his truck's wiper blade. It read in block letters, "You should move your tent." He showed Nina. As they debated leaving, Eli appeared again. James confronted him. Eli grew serious, warning them that weird things happened in these woods, abandoned campsites, missing belongings. He claimed he'd heard people circling his car last night and was cutting his trip short. He strongly advised them to do the same. Spooked, James and Nina began packing hastily as the sun dipped below the trees. Driving out, James saw Eli's car was still there. He stopped. Eli stood beside it, pointing to a massive, deliberate slash in his tire. He asked for a ride. Nina whispered a firm no. James promised to call for help once they had service and drove on. 100 yards down the darkening road, James glanced to the right. 3 figures stood motionless among the trees, 30 feet back, silently watching the road. They weren't hiding. Nina saw them too and screamed, "Drive!" James sped to the highway and called 911. They never learned what happened to Eli. Was he a victim, or was he part of something else? The 3 silent watchers in the woods never left James's mind. Our final story is from David, an experienced outdoorsman reeling from a divorce. He sought absolute solitude, driving hours down degraded logging roads into the heart of the Montana wilderness. When he finally reached his chosen clearing, he found it already occupied. An old, moldering olive-drab tent stood on the far side. It smelled of rot and decay.
Inside, David found only empty cans, a mildewed sleeping bag, and a small notebook filled with page after page of tally marks, grouped in sevens. The last count stretched back over 8 months. Uneasy but intrigued, David set up his own camp a safe distance away, his rifle close. He was jolted awake in the dead of night by whispers, multiple voices just outside his tent, holding a conversation he couldn't decipher. Then, footsteps began circling his shelter. He clutched his rifle. Someone grabbed the zipper and yanked. When the locked clips held, they began scratching at the nylon, like an animal or someone with a blade trying to cut their way in. David shouted a warning, rifle aimed at the flap. The scratching stopped. He heard several people sprinting in different directions into the woods. At first light, armed and wary, David stepped out. The old, moldy tent was gone, vanished. Where it had stood, the grass was undisturbed, as if it had never existed. But encircling his own tent were numerous bare human footprints of varying sizes. They led to a large pine at the edge of the clearing. Freshly carved into its bark were more tally marks, 7 groups of 7, and the beginning of an 8th. Then he saw it. Tied with fishing line to a low branch was a dead squirrel, posed in a grotesque, ritualistic manner. It wasn't hunting, it was a message. David packed in a trembling rush, convinced the tallies in the notebook were a count of days, or perhaps of visitors. He escaped, forever haunted by the thought of what was being counted out there in the endless dark. The wilderness promises peace, but it also hides secrets in its endless shadows. If these true camping horror stories made you reconsider your next trip, please like this video. It helps Winds of Thought bring you more unsettling true narratives. Stay safe, and maybe keep a light on.